everybody. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I'm so excited to welcome Joshua Bitton to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Joshua, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. This is a day that's a long time coming as the Tangle drops today. So I'm really excited.
Well, it is exciting because even though movie theaters are starting to open, watching movies from home is the next best thing, and we can see you on demand in The Tangle, and you play Carter Carmine. He's a private detective accused of murder. So tell us more.
The Tangle is a not so distant future from now where the internet has gone from what we have now, where we could look things up and where our computer can talk to our refrigerator and can talk to, a store. It's where we're all directly linked in to a sort of a massive internet that's called the Tangle. So it's implanted in your brain. And so it's this wild sci-fi film, but shot like a noir, 50s noir feature. So it was a really interesting dive into almost two styles that were kind of working alongside one another. And our writer, Chris, and director and co-star, is a poet. And so his dialogue sings poetry. So it's a really dense script that was super challenging, and it really was like a family project. It was a bunch of people who know and love each other, who were diving in together, devoting all our time for a few weeks to try and make something different and weird and hopefully interesting to audiences.
Did you guys shoot it during the pandemic or beforehand?
Oh no, we shot it beforehand. We shot it to be honest, we shot it a couple years ago. And because it's a lower budget film, Chris pretty much did a majority of the edit and the special effects. Then we went on the film festival circuit until the pandemic hit. It was doing really quite well, winning a number of festivals. And then as we were getting set for what we hope was going to be a small theatrical release and then see what happened, the pandemic happened, and then it became a sort of different process to find someone who could help us get it out into the streaming world so that we could finally share the film with people.
Well, I think people will really enjoy seeing it, and it's such a unique concept, and the production design is really, really incredible.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, our set was built by actually one of my dearest friends, Eric Thorne, and he production designed it and built the set. And we as a cast helped build it. It was that kind of a thing where everyone was involved. And the set was 360 degrees. So you could really live in it. It was really fun and interesting. I can still see myself in spaces there. So I'm really glad you picked that out because Eric did a really beautiful job with it for sure.
Well, another thing I'm thinking of right now actually is your work in the night of, and of course, Riz just freshly Oscar nominated. So that was such an acclaimed series. I wanted to hear about your experiences working on that.
That was one of those projects that when I saw it, I could not believe how lucky I was to be in it because that to me is a real piece of art. And as a New Yorker, as a native New Yorker,
Yeah, me too. Just gotta say.
hey, I knew the vibe was real. I knew the vibe was real.
Yeah.
Is that to me was one of the most, aside from certain gangster movies, one of the most New York film or television things I thought ever made. The way they handled what a New York police department was like, all I could think of was, yep, that's what it felt like when I was there as a kid. And it was so layered. And shooting it, Steve Zalian, our director, and he co-wrote it with Richard Price. Um, you had to be ultimately real. Nothing false would fly by his eye, and so there was in the end, such a simple place that you kind of lived, and we would live it like the cops did for hours and hours, and so everything really just became really honest. It felt so real to be in it. And when I saw how Robert Elswit, who's, you know, I mean, 2 Academy Awards as a DP, shot it, I had no idea how special it really, really was till I saw all the pieces put together. And then I was just thankful that I was there. You know, Bill Camp, one of the best actors alive, in my opinion. Riz never broke dialect for months, stayed in his New York, Queens dialect. And as a kid from Queens, he had Me Believin'. John Turturro, who is a genius already, doing maybe my favorite work I've ever seen him do. So how lucky to watch that and be in it. And yeah, it was amazing for sure.
Yeah, it was so, yeah, such a resonant and highly acclaimed series. And I want to keep talking about TV, even though we were talking about the big screen. We'll get back to it, but let's hear about 911 Lone Star that you're working on with Rob Lowe this season.
Oh man, this is a fun show with a great cast of people. I've gotten lucky enough to do a few episodes. We'll see how many I get to do. But this is just one of those big, high stakes, you know, tornadoes hitting towns and volcanoes hitting towns where there's no moment where something intense isn't going to happen. So I feel like as an actor, it's fun, but it's super challenging because you got to be connected to it to pull it off. And there are some really, really great people. I've made some great friends from that set already, and um, yeah, it's a fun one for sure. And Rob's a pro amongst pros. This guy knows how to be the lead of a show, and he's doing his thing. You know what I mean? He's really, really doing his thing. So it's fun to watch.
Absolutely. And I also want to hear more about $1 and talking about you co-starring alongside Oscar nominees, Leslie Odom Jr. I mean, wow.
How cool, right? I
Yeah,
mean, I saw him I saw him on Broadway. I saw him in Hamilton, and also when you talk about his magical musical skills, let's not forget that in that same cast was Grammy winner and two-time Grammy nominee Sturgill Simpson, who's a country star from
that's right.
Kentucky, who's as good an actor as he is a singer. So it was a remarkable group of interesting people gathered together for that show, and a real legit celebrated indie filmmaker in Craig Zobel, who is a playful artist. I mean, I got to work with John Carroll Lynch. I got to work with Ashley Atkinson and this beautiful British actor, and Nathaniel Martello White. What a great person. Alexa Palladino, who was on Boardwalk Empire, and Phil Ettinger. We went to the same drama school just a few years apart. That show was, as you can tell by how excited I get, was one of the more fun times I've ever had. 7 months in Pittsburgh. Who knew what an amazing town Pittsburgh is? It's got great food. It's beautiful, and to shoot, you just can't find places like this. From like the most beautiful place to the most rundown place, all remarkable in a screen. That was a really fun job. A really, really fun job.
Well, I know you've had many other projects that you've really enjoyed, but I want to talk to you about working with Steven Spielberg in the Pacific.
Great
From
time.
Pittsburgh to the Pacific. What a transition, right?
Right. We shot that in Australia, which I consider my second home. Uh, I can't say this enough. My best friends in the world, many of them come from that job. Uh, Greatest scripts, unbelievable directors, Spielberg and Hanks as your boss. I remember being on set once, and there was a line, and I might have like flipped 2 words because it felt more natural to me, to my mouth. And our director going, "Hey, say that line exactly as written. Tom Hanks wrote those words for you." And you're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no, no, he's smarter than I am. I'm going to say it like how he said." And every element of that job, there was Tony Toe, our executive producer, used to say, it was NAR, no acting required. If you were in the middle of a battle, things were blowing up. You'd point your weapon at an enemy soldier, and he would fall down and blow up. It was like the kid in you that always wanted to play war. Now all of a sudden you were doing it on like the grandest scale with the most amazing people. You know, I will see at least two of my castmates tomorrow for an outdoor just check-in during, you know, this time. I FaceTime with all of them. I mean, those are my guys, you know. So they not only were the scripts amazing and the location amazing, but Cami Patton and Meg Lieberman, who cast it, they know how to put together a group of people that will gel because the Band of Brothers guys are like our big brothers and they're close like we're close. And they told us, you're the only other people in this business right now who know what this is, what this experience is. And now they're setting out to do another one, Tom and Steven, about the air battles. And I can't wait to meet those young men and women that get to be in that because I'm going to look at them and go, I have an idea. It's different, but I know what you guys have been through. And this is the family you get to build. Best job ever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that project as well, the World War II project from them. But I love this expression. I have to admit it's new and fun to me. NAR, no acting required. But talking about that, how about Nicolas Cage? One of my favorites, and you worked with him on National Treasure.
I did. I got to shoot one scene with Nicholas, and what I found was I watched a guy take dialogue that worked, that made sense, and he had these weird little quirks and ticks that made them funny and playful and showed his character's vulnerability in these really small little ways. And I remember walking away going, you as an actor, Josh, have to look deeper sometimes because you think you know what's up, but there's other choices and other things that can happen. So that's also cool when you go to work and you realize it's a lesson, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, he's one of my favorites. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him, and it must have been so much fun. He's one of the greatest actors of our time,
Oh,
and a total pro. You know,
a total pro. He is ready. He is ready to go. There is no time wasted, and he's playful in that world. And so, yeah, no, I mean, I can think of a number of films, but I think of him in Adaptation and think that's one of the best performances. Leaving Las Vegas. I mean, it goes on and on. So, you know, and I was, you know, a young actor getting to have a scene with Nicolas Cage. I mean,
right.
how lucky and cool is that?
Very cool. But I want to talk about one of your upcoming projects, if you can talk about it. But I'm intrigued by the title, Heartland Cartel.
So this is a film that we did a couple days of shooting on, but COVID kind of got, you know, in the way.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's written by a guy named Brandon Smith, who was an NFL football player, was also an Army Ranger. He
Oh,
comes from Oklahoma, where he has watched a lot of former military and just people in those areas get entrenched with Mexican drug cartels.
hmm.
And one of those things that they go through these states to get to spread drugs around. And he wanted to tell a story about PTSD in a world like this. And so it's, I think it's a great film. And we are set to pick up filming at the end of April. Um, and and shoot through May in Oklahoma, which is a state I've only driven through. So that'll be a fun new experience. And it's an intense ride. You know, it is an intense film with really, really high stakes. I got to shoot a scene with Danny Trejo, which was so cool. And talk about a professional and a kind guy. What, you know, for all the badasses this guy plays,
Yeah.
he's just so comfortable with himself that he's just able to be gentle and gracious with everyone around. I'm excited for this film. I really, really am. I've got a nice role and a lot of fun stuff to live through, and there's some super cool characters in this movie, so it should be a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds great. But before that, and before you hit the road, it is happy hour. And
Ah,
I want to propose a toast to you, Josh. And I want to wish you continued success in all of your upcoming projects. And it's been a pleasure having you.
Well, I will toast to you. I feel touched by one of the interview gods to get to be interviewed by you. So thank you so very much. This one's to you, Hillary. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.
Boom.